I'd like to welcome you to this session. It's called a workshop, but it's not quite formally a workshop, because the workshop would normally involve lots of exercises and things. It's more, I want to explore some ideas and then open it up to conversation. This is one of the free community events from the School of Humankind. School of Humankind is a new initiative. We launched it 7 weeks ago. A whole range of us from a whole range of disciplines: artists, engineers, scientists, health and wellness people from all around the world, finance people, all of this, all coming together, committed to offering education, offering courses, having intelligent conversations, getting outside of the echo chambers that people usually live in, trying to find a way to have wonderful learning as much for free as possible, and then backing that up by people like me offer courses and so on and so forth. This is one of the many, many free community events we do. We'll be doing 100 free events this year. So keep an eye open and see what else is on. Angela and I are the co-founders of it. I don't know whether Angela was aiming to come tonight, but I just said to her, please come, because I might lose Wi-Fi. So I'm going to talk you through this set of ideas I've got. I put it that way because this is new material for me. Often when I'm running a workshop or teaching, I will share the stuff that I know very well, because it's what I do. But one of the things we do at School of Humankind is we also encourage all of us, faculty and people who come along to attend events, to risk what we don't know so well. To go, well, okay, this is my cutting edge. We have conversations between faculty where we don't really know what we're going to talk about. We just know we have shared interests, so we explore things. And what happens is brilliant conversations, really good conversations. Well, this material that I'm going to be sharing tonight, it grows out of 30 years of training performers. But this way of thinking about it is new. It's come out just in the last month as I start the process of writing a new book, which is my focus for the next year. Sort of probably the big book of my life. I've published 5 books, but this is likely to be the big one of my life. And it's provisionally called What Actors Know. My starting point is this: performers, when I use the word actors, I really mean dancers, not so much martial artists, but partly, but dancers, circus performers, acrobats, puppeteers. Everybody who performs has access to deep wisdom. They don't necessarily access it, but they have access to deep wisdom. I'm not saying actors are smarter than other people. I'm saying that the process of acting gives us access to deep wisdom, not only deep wisdom, but ancient wisdom. I argue, and I have a set of reasons for arguing this, it's the oldest human wisdom. It is the wisdom that began to emerge when humans first began to form communities. Originally, it was the wisdom of the shamans and the dreamers and the priests, and then it became the wisdom of the actors and so on. So this session is outlining really what I mean when I talk about what actors know. If you're an actor, these are the things I think you need to know to be a better actor. If you're a teacher, these are the things that you are teaching when you teach performance. And if you're neither of those things, these are the things that you can develop in your own life if you choose to live more as an actor and less as an audience. But the first part of what it's called is being authentic. So we kind of have to start with, what is authenticity? I'm going to share some things. I'm going to keep this slideshow on for the next little while, and then I'll take it away and we can have a conversation. So people talk about the real me. I want to be the real me, my real self. I get that. And in some ways, I'm just playing with words, but the word real doesn't work for me very well. This glass is real. I know it's real because I can bang it. I can hit it on my head and I can feel it. It's a real thing. Real for me suggests a thing, something that has a material reality. But you see, when I'm walking down the road through my little village and I see the old fella who lives in the house across the way, I talk to him in a certain way. And then I talk to the person in the shop a different way. And I talk to Angela a different way. And I talk to my partner a different way. And when I'm teaching, I'm doing a different thing, which is a real me. I'm all of those things. I'm playing roles. We all play roles all of the time. I struggle with the idea real because it suggests that there is a single me, a self that is real, and everything else in some way is some kind of fake. I don't think that's tenable. And neuroscience suggests it's not tenable. Neuroscience suggests that there is no such thing as an essential self. That doesn't mean we can't be real. I prefer to work with the word authentic. Who is the real you? How many different versions of you, which feel real, could you begin to imagine right now? You, the lover, you, the parent, you, the teacher, you, the person getting grumpy with your next door neighbor. So let's, instead of real, think about authentic. Authentic, interesting etymology. It comes from the word authentes, which I believe is Greek. One acting on one's own authority. Comes from autos, which means self, and hentes, meaning doer or being. Self-being or self-doing. Authentic, self-being or self-doing. If real describes a thing, I think authentic is active. It describes a process. It's something we do. It's something we are in process. We do authenticity. Now, you see, acting is a process. There's no product in acting. A film is a product, but a film isn't acting. A film is record of acting. Acting is a process. Actors do stuff in front of people. Even if they're making a film, actors do stuff in front of a camera. But acting is not a product. You can't say, here is my character, Hamlet. You can't say, here is the performance I did of Hamlet. You can't say, here is the play, Hamlet. You can only experience it as an unfolding process. So, starting point for my thinking is authenticity, for me, describes a process of doing, and acting is a process, and of course, living is a process. There's no such thing as, here is my life, I can put it on the table and look at it. My life is an unfolding process which changes and evolves from day to day. And this is the heart of what actors know. There is no product. There is only process. Active. Doing. So I want to suggest that there are 7 key things actors need to know if they're going to be and do authentically. And these are the 7 key things that make up what I call what actors know. They're the things that actors have access to, and they're the things that all of us have access to if we choose to live as active players of our part in life rather than passive audiences of our part in life. Also, for those of us who are teachers or who have taught, this is what we are offering to people when we teach them at any level, primary school, community, corporate workshop, health and wellness retreat, anything that involves any element of performance. This is what we're offering to people. And the first is we're offering the people knowledge and awareness of presence. Presence is central to performance. If an actor's not present, they simply don't communicate. Some of us, I know I have had the very depressing, boring experience of watching actors on stage when they're really just not there. They're either so stressed that they're thinking about their next line, or they're bored and they don't think that the audience is important enough because you come on a Tuesday matinee or whatever. And it is deathly watching people wandering around the stage, saying lines, not being present. Many of us also might have had the experience, I know I have, of being in a school hall and watching some kids perform, and their performance is, in any objective sense, awful. They are bumbling their lines and they can't remember where they are, and they're standing in front of each other and they keep looking out and waving at their mum, and you can't take your eyes off them because they are so alive. Hi, Mum. Hi, I'm on stage. They're amazing. Way more amazing than half the professional actors I've ever seen. What's the secret sauce? It's presence. They are fully, absolutely present in what they're doing. If an actor is not present, does not learn how to be present, they will never be authentic because they're not really there. They're faking it. What are the deep level skills you need to develop presence? And this is what we teach people when we teach them performance. Mental and physical discipline, not fidgeting, not getting distracted, not letting your mind wander away, not worrying about the present, the future, not worrying about the past. We learn to direct our attention, and we learn to maintain focus. Core human skills. An actor needs to learn presence. When an actor learns presence, these are the skills they develop. The second of our 7 competencies is shaping. Performance is about shaping time, energy, and space. Everything in performance is about shaping. Rhythm is a form of shaping. How you deliver text is a form of shaping. Dance is a form of shaping. And it's not just physical shaping, shaping time. Rhythm is the shaping of time. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this son of York. In that little pause, you create suspense by shaping time. You take that line from whichever it is, Henry the something or other, and you change the energy. Now is the winter of our discontent made. I've just reduced the energy. Glorious summer by this. I've increased the energy. It's what actors do. We shape space, we shape time, we shape energy. The skills we learn as we learn to shape, we learn how to connect. In other words, if you're going too fast, or you're moving too much, or you're gabbling your text, you're not connecting. We learn to connect and we learn to communicate. We learn how the shaping of time, energy, and space enables us to open channels of communication with others. We also crucially learn rhythm, which is how we turn the huge amorphous sense of time into something structured that we can use, that we can share with our audience. Rhythm is about creating shared time with your audience. Here's a third thing that actors know: flexibility. By flexibility, I mean adaptability. The ability that whatever happens, you take it into your performance and you adapt. Maybe you only adapt slightly, just like tiny imperceptible shift of energy when an audience member coughs when you're performing, slight raise of your volume, or if your co-performer says a line slightly differently to how you expected it, there's just a minor shift in how you speak. Perhaps you change majorly. Particularly in comedy or whatever, if something happens, you might go off at a complete tangent, ridiculously lose all sense of the script, and then gradually bring it back. We learn to be flexible and adaptable, because otherwise our performance is not live. It's just dead. It's a museum piece. We're showing people something we rehearsed yesterday. A live performance is responding to the unfolding moment. Live performance means connecting with reality, not some image of how the show should be. It means connecting with what is. Actors learn to be flexible. It requires awareness, responsiveness, and crucially, courage. Not to go, oh, I can't, I rehearsed it like this, I've got to keep it like this. No, to hell with that. An actor on stage, whatever happens, I go, bring it on, come on, yeah. That child's noisy in the audience, I'll lift it a little bit. I'm not going to fight that child. I'm going to bring them on board. I'm going to make it wonderful for them. This is a small audience. I'm in a 5,000-seater and there's only 220 people turned up. I'm going to make this the most intimate, wonderful experience of their life. It takes courage to be flexible. Actors learn how to be brave. Here's another key area of competency: collaboration. Collaboration is fundamentally about balancing the individual's needs, your own needs and your own desires and your own, duties, with the needs of others and the community and the collective. If an actor is on stage with 4 other actors, she or he is continually negotiating between their performance and the performances of the other people, because they're all trying to contribute towards something which is bigger than any of them, which is the performance. Even if you're doing a solo show, you are negotiating between the needs of the audience and what you have prepared. You don't just get to, unless you're, not a very responsive performer, you don't just get to go, I don't give a damn what the audience want, I'm just going to do my thing. If they laugh long and loud, I'm just going to keep going at the pace I prepared and they'll miss half the lines. No, you respond. You're constantly negotiating between what you want and need and what you are discovering the community wants and needs. Stanislavski, the great, father of Western theatre in the 20th century, said something like, today you're Hamlet, tomorrow you're a spear carrier, but always you are the actor in the play. In other words, it doesn't matter what part you're playing, always you play your part, but you serve the play. That's a misquote from Stanislavski. I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something like that. What does the skills of collaboration teach us? It teaches us boundaries. What is my responsibility? What is not my responsibility? It teaches us agency. Where, sometimes when you're on stage, you're the center of attention. You got to step up and you got to be big and you got to hold that attention. And then in a split second, somebody else is the center of attention. You've got to turn it off. Let it go. It's not about you anymore. Remember years ago, very, very fine actor Patrick Stewart happened to be chancellor of the university where I was an academic for a few years. And Patrick is one of the most extraordinarily charismatic people I know, brilliant stage actor as well as a very, very well-known film actor. And Patrick had an amazing ability. He was about 70 when I knew him, something like that, mid-60s, 70. Patrick could walk into a room, and even if people looking the other way would feel a flick of electricity and would turn around and look at him, he could light up a room like nobody I've ever met. Once doing a masterclass, he'd come in to watch some students I'd been directing, doing some stuff for Macbeth. And, he directed them. He's a brilliant teacher as well. And just towards the end, he said, we've got 5 minutes left. Would you like me to do a speech from Macbeth? He was just back from doing Macbeth on Broadway. And we went, oh, yeah, for sure. And he just went, okay. And he took a breath, and it was like a spotlight went on him and lights went off everywhere else in the room. Nothing actually changed, but he sucked the energy to himself in a way that was extraordinary. And yet I've walked across a campus with thousands of people on with Patrick, and not a single person's looked at him because he's turned the energy off. Absolutely extraordinary. The skills of collaboration, agency, personal responsibility, knowing your boundaries, and also learning to respect that it's not always all about you, but sometimes it's all about you. It's about learning respect. Number 5, spectrum thinking. Western thought particularly is very hung up on binaries. Good, bad, right, wrong, yes, no. My friend, your friend, right wing, left wing, whatever. Actors can't get hung up on binaries. There's no right way to play Hamlet. I mean, there are some technical things which have to be right, like you've got to get the words in the right order. Even that's flexible. You might choose to cut, or you might choose to do an improvisation around Hamlet. But let's say that, there are some technical things that you want to get right. But beyond the technical things, binaries are meaningless. There's no right or wrong way to be a dancer. There's not really any good or bad way to be a dancer. What you might think is awful, somebody else might think is truly amazing. Somebody says, oh, that's the wrong sort of person to be in a dance troupe. She's the wrong shape or the wrong height or whatever. And someone else might go, that's fantastic. Good, bad, right, wrong, they're meaningless. Acting is about choices, more or less intense performance, more or less appropriate, more or less conventional, more or less traditional, more or less funny. But actors learn to explore spectrums rather than choose between binaries. Of course, life is not binary. Western thought tries to impose binaries, but it's got very little to do with reality. Reality is a spectrum. So when we start embracing spectrum thinking, we are actually aligning with reality. It encourages us to develop critical thinking. It encourages us to embrace complexity. It also encourages personal agency, because when there's no nice, easy categories of right, wrong, good, bad, you have to decide and stick by the choices that you've made. An actor, in the end, makes a choice about her or his performance, and then they need to justify that choice. They need to take personal responsibility. They have agency. They need to take responsibility. Number 6 on our list of 7, playfulness. Actors create through play. We play roles in plays. Sometimes we play instruments while we're playing roles in plays. There's a lot of playing going on. No great surprise. Play is the fundamental mammalian learning mechanism. It's how we learn. Mammals, including humans, aren't actually evolved to learn by sitting down and being told things. We are evolved to learn through active play. That's why drama and dance and music are so fundamental to good education, because it aligns with the reality of being human. Now, it's not just about learning, it's about creativity. Creativity is a playful act. It's saying, I wonder what happens if I put this with this. Definition of creativity: two things that are normally kept separate, brought into relationship with each other. I wonder what happens if I put a historical piece of musical theatre together with hip hop. Oh, look, I've invented Hamilton. You know, that's what creativity is. It's playful. It's taking a risk. It's going, I wonder what if. But also, not only for creativity and learning, also actors know that they have to play their process. When they're in front of an audience, even if they are playing something very serious, there is a lightness of touch. An actor needs to know when she or he is going too far, particularly in live theatre, because if an audience really thinks you're suffering, thinks you're really suffering, thinks you're really about to stab somebody on the stage, and thinks you really have stabbed somebody on the stage, if they think you are really mad, they switch into self-defense mode. They switch off. They break the channels of communication. And actors know this. Actors play characters. There's, this great conventional myth that an actor loses themselves in a character. It's really not true. It's really not true. To some extent, when we're performing, we become very wrapped up in what we're doing. But that's no different to when I'm painting, I become very wrapped up in a painting. Or when I'm walking, I become very wrapped up in a walk. Or attention all goes into that thing. There's been research that says, do actors ever really believe they're a character? And about, this was research done with professional performers in America. About 98% said, no, I've never believed I was a character. I've sometimes got very immersed in character, but they play characters. And again, it's a little rude, but I can't remember who said it, but somebody said, if you genuinely believe you are Jesus Christ, that's not acting, it's psychosis. I would say, actors always have that lightness of touch, that playfulness. That's what we do. We play characters. And through playfulness, we open up playful channels of communication with our audience, however serious our work is. When we train people in playfulness, we train them in accessibility. We're training them to be open and connected rather than distant and serious. We're training them to be creative, and we're training them to develop a personal charisma. And the last of our 7, actors work in public. All of this stuff that we do as actors happens under the eye of the public. Our work is meaningless unless at some level it goes into the public. Acting is a process, an authentic process, which we have to do while other people are watching us. It is fundamentally about interconnection rather than individualism. Of course, individualism is vital in there because interconnection between two people requires two individuals to be interconnecting. But acting is fundamentally about reaching out beyond the self into connection with other. It is an authentic process of doing and being while being watched by and in communication with others. Acting, because of its public nature, encourages self-awareness and self-confidence It trains us in the creating and sustaining of relationships. And perhaps its most ancient function, it builds community. These are the 7 things that I suggest are at the heart of the ancient wisdom of what actors know. Presence, shaping, flexibility, collaboration, spectrum thinking, playfulness, and working in public. Not every actor develops these things or knows these things or turns into somehow a more integrated and healthy person because of these things. But acting opens the door to these things. And by acting, I stress, I'm talking about dance, I'm talking about music, I'm talking about circus, any active way of performing for others. So I'm not saying that actors are smarter than others. The analogy I could use is somebody who's not religious, but I recognize in every religion I've ever studied, which is quite a lot of them, there is deep value. But not everybody who follows any religion actually embodies or communicates or has even ever thought of that value. There's people who say they're religious who don't behave in a way that seems remotely religious to me. The wisdom is there, but people have to choose to access it. The wisdom is there in performance. Actors and all of us can choose to access it. If we do, and we learn how to be more present with each other, how to collaborate, how to shape time and space, how to be responsive, how to move beyond binaries, how to be gentle and playful with each other in public, my suggestion is that we might just move towards a more healed, holistic, and integrated way of living and beyond the divisive, isolated way that we are currently spiraling into right around the world, but especially in the West. So there, some thoughts. This is what I've been writing for the last 3 weeks as I outline the scope of my new book. And this is the first outing for these ideas. So I'm kind of interested to know whether there's any response. I'm interested to know whether there's things echo into your sense of going, yeah, that makes sense. Are there things that you want to challenge? Are there things that you want to question? We have about 5 or so minutes, maybe a little more. So
how about 28 minutes?
well, keep talking. Go for it. I'm really interested to know what people, and whether there's any thoughts. Go,
I would
Sophia.
imagine a man with your very profound and deep and hardworking intellect knows where the word real comes from.
Remind me. Go on.
Royal.
Thank you.
So
Yes.
you're a peasant in the field, and the prince comes by trying to prove himself at age 18 or 26 with his girlfriend, with his staff of people, with his valet, and he has this power. Therefore, he's real, and you, the peasant, are not real. But the interesting thing about that same picture is if you have a wealthy prince or a wealthy king, and they come by and their horses have golden horseshoes on, then you learn the history of the good luck horseshoe, which is when the peasant found a horseshoe of gold that the king or princess's horse threw off on that country road. And there's the the reason why we think horseshoes are very lucky. So you can take those and run with them, but the idea of importance, when you were speaking, I thought of a great actor, Donald Trump. And he's convinced at least half of the country that he's something special just by belief in himself. That's his foremost characteristic. And they call him a malignant narcissist. So if he can run with that trait that's in his DNA and his psyche, then he can convince a lot of people who need convincing. and they will vote for him, and they will donate money to him, and they will allow him with his 90-some legal, not legal cases, but legal actions that some have wound up in legal cases, that he doesn't need to worry about those. He needs to run the free world, which is not so free when he's in charge. Those are some thoughts you can dive into.
Okay, so yeah, and I thank you for them. I think the interesting thing about the nature of performance, and I would see someone like Trump and many other demagogic politicians as performers. I think Trump is a particular case because you know, not particularly wanting to start a political argument, but I think Trump is profoundly mentally ill. I actually do think he's psychotic, as in I think that he is unable to have any distance from himself, any self-awareness at all. And so I genuinely think that he's problematic to himself. But the power of performance is such that it can be manipulated towards, what we might call positive or productive or developmental or healing ends, or it can be manipulated towards very destructive ends, because performance is fundamentally about building community. And if you build that community as a force of opposition to other communities, which politicians so often do, then of course it becomes a very malignant force. So what actors know, one of the reasons I think it's really important that we explore what actors know is precisely because it is a power, and I believe it's a power that as humans we need to reclaim from those who are manipulating it and using it against us.
I think it's comedic if you think about it, because part of Trump, even if he's a psychotic and he's a malignant narcissist, inside he knows when he's acting, he knows when he's lying, he knows at the end of the day, if he was successful 80% of the time convincing people of what he thought, of making deals, of pushing buttons, and still carrying on, it's a comedy because he knows what he just did. And this is what Charlie Chaplin once said about Hitler. This was in the late 1930s. He said, "Hitler's a far better actor than I will ever dream of being."
Yeah, you're opening up a really interesting thing there, my friend, and I want to mull more on that, because I hadn't particularly been considering the malignant power of what actors know. But
let's do a podcast on that too.
Okay, you got it. We got a list of podcasts to do. Because let's see. Is there any other input, Manuel or Aurelia? Hey, Aurelia.
I have a question. If you work with a group, so how do you start? You will start with exercises or with this theory. It's a very good theory, but for the person who knows what is acting, I think so. Is it clear?
If I was working with people, with a group, I wouldn't even mention the theory. Wouldn't even mention it. We learn by doing. We would just do stuff, and then later, if it was useful to them, I would say, look what we've learned. But as soon as you give them the theory, this is true in any context, as soon as you tell people the theory, they try to get something right. They try to do the theory. Whereas if you're going to work in a group of actors, we got to play. That's what we got to do. We got to find a way to play together. That's all we've got to do. So I would never start from theory unless I was working with teachers and we were doing something like that. But no, it's playful. With actors, any kind of performers, play. serious play or messing around play, doesn't matter, but always go for the practice, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, lovely to hear from you. Any other thoughts or
John, I had a thought on your the seventh point,
Mhm.
working in public. And when you were talking about it, it made me think of, the whole question of when a tree falls in a forest, does anyone hear it? And if something happens and no one witnesses it, does it really happen? And almost it gave me the whole picture of the connectivity of us as a society, that of our important role we play in society, and that we have to let ourselves shine. We have to let ourselves go out there and be seen for whatever role we're playing, for who we are. So I thought that little point was kind of threw up all these big things in my head in terms of it's almost like our responsibility to be seen, to be connected with others, to have a relationship with the world. I thought that was quite profound,
So,
Mr. Britton.
thank you, Ms. Jameson. So you see, if I'm in a studio on my own working and something happens, there is an observer. I've observed it. I have observed it in myself. But the act of performance is incomplete, because performance, I think, almost by definition, requires a connection to an audience. If it's just me observing myself, it is closer to the use of drama in terms of therapy and so on, which is also really useful and powerful. But performance is completed when a co-creation happens with an audience, by which I mean I do something, you watching it have thoughts and responses, and actually you make Hamlet in your mind stimulated by what I'm doing on stage. It's an act of co-creation, and Manuel's Hamlet would be slightly different to your Hamlet, would be different to Sifu's Hamlet, and so on. We co-create in performance. Now, we can observe ourselves and go through processes of co-creation there as well, but I wouldn't really see that performance. I would see it as using drama skills in more therapeutic or personal development ways. The bigger point about our obligation in some ways to go out into the world, I agree with very strongly. I think however you do it, and certainly in anyone I coach or mentor these days, this is a sort of a starting point. However you choose to do it, for your own sake and for the sake of the world, share what you have with the people who you think need it. If that's just caring, for your elderly mother or your family, absolutely brilliant. If it's you've got a really interesting hobby and there's other people around the world who share that hobby and you chat online, brilliant. It doesn't matter what it is, but we play a role in life. Let that playing be performed publicly. And there's many reasons why I think that's important. One of them is that I think that we are not fully human until we are in connection with others. I think that's just the nature of humanity. And secondly, because we are taught shame. And when we are taught to come into the public domain, we are encouraged to move beyond the shame that many of us are taught from childhood. So what you say seems to me really important, Angela. It is about saying, yes, take up some space in the world, because you're alive. Why wouldn't you? This glorious thing we have of being alive. You don't have to say, look at me, I've got 5,000 followers on Instagram, look how many likes. It's not about that crap. It's about saying, I have something and there is someone who wants it. So I'm going to make a gift of it.
Yep. And going into being playful and everything.
All of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Manuel.
Yes. Yes, quite vast everything. Lately, in the last month, now it resonate for me what you say, connecting with reality. And what I've been finding, what I sense and feel lately for after COVID, it was this connection with reality, as the reality that I thought that the reality that I thought was real.
Yeah.
in this moment is not what I thought it was. So it crashed. It had like a, I don't know, like a flick, double reality, let's say. And I have the intention to perform with people, intention to do, to create something. And at the same time, you feel like you are like in a sleep mode. And I relate it, not just for me, I can sense and see people in the same way they are now. And so what for me is how to perform I don't know how to say it, how to create a new reality. I feel that we need to create more moments, more reality, go and play, go and I can sense that, and that's what it took me to start to do some kind of research as a solo show and connect with people. But I still feel the atmosphere around in general. I start as universal feeling, and I ended up just researching for myself where it comes everything, that feeling and everything. But yeah, how to the reality is what is affecting some questions. And
I think,
you know,
it makes a huge amount of sense.
I don't know if I can.
Makes a huge amount of sense to me, because you're trying to articulate what is
what
beyond,
I can.
but it's beyond words. But I think
Yes,
think it's in the air. I think we are, many of us, feeling somehow that there is maybe a shift, or maybe a fracturing of the ways that we learned to be in the world. The world is fracturing, but also the way we have learned to be in the world. It seems to me there's two fracturings happening. There is everything outside is, problematic at the moment. It's chaotic, and there's climate breakdown and all of this stuff. It's huge, but also we are not keeping up. And the way we have learned over the last 150, 250 years as humans, the way we have learned to live with each other, it's not fit for purpose anymore. It doesn't work. I think there is a huge potential shift coming. In fact, I would say there is a huge shift coming. The choice is whether it is going to be a shift we are able to take some agency and control over, or whether it's going to be done to us. Through climate breakdown, through the breakdown of national borders because of mass, climate-based and war-based refugees and so on. Either we are going to shift how we operate in the world so that we can actually respond to reality, or we're going to be overwhelmed by reality. That's my own personal politics. Now, how do we do that? Well, I think What Actors Know gives us some ideas about how to do that. Learn to be more playful, learn to be more, to work more in public. Most importantly, learn to be present. Really come back to connecting with reality. And, the question that we always ask ourselves, am I connecting with reality, or am I telling myself a story about reality? And the answer is always, I'm telling myself a story. We're always telling ourselves stories. So the question then becomes, is this story a useful story? Or is there a more useful story for me to be telling myself about reality? But I think you're articulating something, my friend, which I think is really important. There is a significant set of unfolding crises, internal and external. COVID focused some things, climate change is focusing things, the massive descent of the world back into, barbarism in many ways is focusing things, so on. There is a huge crisis. At the deepest level, Angela says about going out into the world, at the deepest level, what I think I'm trying to do with What Actors Know is actually suggest a knowledge system that will help us with these crises.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's lovely to thank you for articulating that. It's very strong. So look, we've run over time. I always promise I won't run over time, and I always run over time, and then I get into trouble from Angela because she's very strict. Yeah. So I'm going to wrap it up. Everyone's got my email address, I think, or you can write to me, School of Humankind, if you want to carry on the conversation. Thank you for being here tonight. School of Humankind, there's loads. There's a brilliant conversation from a couple of weeks ago I had with Nick Aemuru, who's an extraordinary performer who I've known for 30 years, now lives in Northwest America, about how we come back from personal crisis, how as artists, but also everyone else, we refine strength after breakdown and so on. There's a beautiful conversation that's in the library, and there's loads of other stuff about motherhood and about so many things. Go along to the library. Everything's around 45-50 minutes. It's something to do over your lunch break. Dig into a good conversation. For now, though, I'm going to say to all of you, thank you very much. And I'm glad the electricity didn't go off again. So take care about that. I've just got a message. What does that say? Life as a performance. Well, you see, Irving, I could go off here again. Irving Goffman or Gussman in the 60s was a very popular sociologist. He's very out of fashion now. But he said that people are continually paying roles in public. His works are, is that idea of life as a performance in ways that's quite interesting. It's a little out of date, and he's very out of fashion these days, but often people who are out of fashion are the people we should go back and look at. So anyway, I'm going to start talking again. Stop me. Let's end it there. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.